You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 198 of East Central Indiana's favorite podcast. Jeremiah Morrell today, joined by sit-in co-host Mike Broyles, special guest Kyle Robbins, producer Zach Burcham, and my forever co-host Dakota Davis.
Today's episode features the four of us, and we're going to be talking to you, first of all, about some politics, which is going to be our new STEMI bill. The Biden bucks are going to be coming into your bank account here shortly. Then we're going to be talking to Kyle Robbins about racing, how he got started in racing in the city of Newcastle, and the USAC Silver Crown Series. And did I pronounce that wrong? I'm just reading off the list that Jeremiah gave me.
That's funnier than vaccine.
Then what?
They call it USAC. Yeah.
Oh. USAC?
The United States Office.
I said
USAC.
USAC.
Yes.
That's still an
I've never heard it
abbreviation.
called that.
Listen,
I've heard a few people call it that.
if Jeremiah
okay.
didn't create the show notes today, I was going to be sending him a text and being like, you've got to cover this because I don't know what half the words that you've put in our planning chat even mean. We're going to be talking to Kyle about
We all have our own
who's
strengths,
on
buddy.
his team, first of all, and just basically all things racing. It's kind of cool to have someone who lives in Newcastle who's doing racing, and we're going to talk about him, pick his brain about what all of that is like.
You summed it up perfectly, man. I'm very excited. This is going to go well. This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you. Other times we'll make you laugh. But hopefully you'll always learn something new, like how to pronounce USAC.
Well, it is, I mean, it's a whatever.
Honestly, there are people that hate USAC completely. You're fine.
I guess I'll figure out why in a minute.
Yeah. And my father-in-law is off camera. Just he'll be talking throughout the evening, making us laugh. All right, Dakota, who we got to thank? What are we doing?
Patreon.com/Boss Hog of Liberty. That's where you can go to support the show on a monthly level. Every month, it just comes out of your account. You don't even have to do anything. It's very automatic. It's great, and we appreciate it. Those are the folks in that club that keep the bills paid. They keep Mike Broyles paid every month.
Mike is the landlord. He's not. This isn't mafia deal where he just takes.
Mike is our generous landlord over here at the Boss Hog of Liberty Studios, and we also keep the electric bill paid for that. And for all those folks, we are very, very grateful. The plans start at $5 a month, and then they go up by select tiers. If you sign up at any level, then you get access to the show notes ahead of time, so you can follow along during the show. You also get access to a special 20-minute bonus episode that is also live streamed into a super secret Facebook group. And occasionally we'll do some drops where we'll give you like coupon codes for the T-chip stores that we have. We've sent stickers out in the past and postcards with pictures of our favorite guests. Maybe Kyle will make the next one. Who knows? Just, no pressure, but we'll see how you do.
Okay.
And we also have, if you sign up at $50 or more a month, a shout out at the front of every episode. Those folks are Mr. Chris Lamb, Christy Avery from all the way in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then Mr. Jonathan Phillips, who is our favorite car dealer in the Midwest. I'm just going to go ahead and start saying the Midwest now.
Yeah. Andy,
I don't know. I might go to like Hawaii one day and be like, ooh, Jonathan's got some stiff competition.
In North America, in continental North America.
We also have T-chip stores. That's where you can go and get your Boss Hog of Liberty merchandise. tchip.com/BHOL1234 or BHOL mug. BHOL mug is a color-changing mug. So if you pour your coffee into it, first of all, it just looks like, I think, just black. And then it becomes white and it reveals the beautiful Boss Hog of Liberty logo. And then we, the 1, 2, 3, or 4, 1, 2, and 3 are all of our apparel lines, which is T-shirts, long sleeve tees, hoodies, those sorts of things. And BHOL 4 is your masks, because we're not in Texas and we still have to wear masks.
Still mask up Hoosiers and whatnot. 1 year anniversary, by the way. Congratulations, everybody. You made it. If you're listening now, you've survived a year of hunker down Hoosiers and 15 days to flatten the curve and all that fun stuff. All right. Good news, Dakota. The president, we talked about the show notes. I had 3 versions of the show notes this afternoon. You were joking about having to do them how I was going to have to do them. And I knew that. So I went ahead and whipped them together. And then I submitted them. And Kyle said, well, we need to change a couple things on the itinerary, which is on the order of what had happened, which is fine. Perfect. Great. And then I had originally said that President Biden was going to sign the stimulus bill tomorrow, because as of noon today, that was the plan. That's what they told us. And then all of a sudden, about 3:00 this afternoon, they signed it into law, and we're off to the races.
That's right.
So the president had the big signing today. We've been tracking this, and this is going to be mostly a racing episode. We'll cover this just because this is the story we've been following ad nauseum for months. Round 3 of stimulus is happening. $1,400 a person, as we've discussed. $300 per week unemployment additional money out there. It was $400. Now that's dropped down to $300. But still significant income coming in there for folks that may or may not have been able to work in the last year. And then the big dinger, the per child, for all y'all that have kids right now, man, $3,000 a year per kid, and it's going to be paid out monthly. So you're just going to start getting checks, I guess, is the way this is going to go down, or auto direct deposited.
It's a little deceptive, though, I think.
Because you were getting like $2,000 and now it's going up to $3,000.
So it's $3,000 or $3,600. So if your kid's under 6 years old, it's $300 a month, and then it's $250 a month if they're 6 or over. But that is part of that is your tax credit. So I think, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong,
when you file your taxes,
you're going to be $4,000 down on your tax refund income
if you have 2 kids
come next year. Yeah, or $2,000 per kid. Now I'm not sure they're going to do that. When it comes to tax time, I guess next year they'll say, well, we're not going to give it to you yet because they're not going to start it till July. So in theory, it would take till July of next year to get that paid out. But yeah.
Can you decline it so that you don't have to worry about paying that next year?
I don't know, but I would almost, or I would say, give me the difference and don't touch my refund.
What I want to know is last week, Jesse Riddle was on, he was talking about this unbanked group of people. So now what the heck's going to happen? If they're going to auto deposit it, but they don't normally auto deposit the money, are all these folks going to rush out and get checking accounts now? Or are they going to get government checks where they're going to go sign the back of it and just have mad money running around? There's going to be a whole other side of issues.
Well, it's about time that Jackson started pulling his weight out of the house.
I mean, I can imagine for some people, though, it's got to be kind of a game changer to have that.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it's enough that people are afraid.
Especially if you're living in California and New York City, where the daycares and things are shut down and you rely on that daycare to get to your job. Now, all of a sudden, you can afford to send your kid to daycare and go to work.
I don't think it's enough for people.
Or pay someone to come and watch your kid.
Some people are saying that people aren't going to work because of it, but I don't think it's enough to keep somebody from working unless you've got a bunch of kids, but
yeah,
you've got your own struggles then.
If you've got like 8 kids, you can be like, I'm taking a 6 months recess.
The real question is going to be, how long does this last? Because you're at some point going to have taught people the behavior to expect this extra money to come in. And how is it going to change people? It's almost turning into the UBI that we talked about, Dakota, back in a year and a half ago when Andrew Yang was running for president, and everybody's going to get $1,000 a month. Universal basic income.
I think it's a good way.
It's like that's where we're at, right? It's the third round of stimulus. If you got a family of 4, Zach and I were joking around earlier today that there needs to be a bunch of $5,600 campers being sold.
$5,600 down, $250 a month, or $500 a month if it's got bunks.
If you're selling anything on Marketplace, find that $5,000 price tag because everybody's getting ready to have it. But you've got this. You're getting ready to set people up with $10,000 a year in extra income that they didn't have or they're not accustomed to. And now, if you don't keep giving this every year, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, you're setting up a terrible behavior or a habit that's going to be devastating to some families.
I think it's just for a year. at this point
For now.
And then they said, yeah, but the interesting thing that they said was when it'll come up for renewal, it'll be a campaign thing for the midterms.
Right.
And so then they'll force people to vote, to say, yeah, we're going to take that from you. So that'll be interesting.
Jeremiah, I'll take her back for a year.
My father-in-law is offering to take my wife back for a year. She doesn't come with that. It's that most of that is expired, Kevin. She's like 30 now, and it doesn't. You ready to adopt some kids, Mike?
No, I don't want to go back that way.
I don't know.
But it's just like the EDC was talking this morning. They had people from Grady on, and they're 40 people short of what they need right now. They're 220. They want to expand. You can't find any people that want to work. So, and
why do you want to go work hard and smell bad after when somebody's going to send you $700 a week in unemployment?
Yep, my feeling.
That's the tough conversation to have.
I've had a few discussions on Facebook that haven't gone well. But
you start to be unpopular.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the same problem at the machine shop. Young kids don't seem like they want to work anymore.
Those are good paying jobs. I mean,
You'll get them for 6 months, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I found someplace else," and out the door.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, but enjoy it. Check your bank account. The link that we provided in the show notes says that the president signed it today, and if you got the electronic direct deposit last time and you're eligible, potentially by this weekend. First stuff may be in there, maybe Saturday. So check that, and then go buy something on Craigslist. I think Zach's got some wheels to sell or something. I don't know.
I've got some IU memorabilia to sell.
Mike's been peddling all kinds of IU. Did you finally give up? They finished like 13th in the Big Ten, and you're wearing black tonight. So obviously you've made a big change in your life.
No, actually, they've been in my stepfather's basement for about 10 years and needing to clean things out. So
I got you. Well, I would start the asking price somewhere around $250, and
56 takes it all. 5,600 takes it all.
5,600 gets the lot. Might be able to get some signatures on there too. All right, let's talk some racing. That's enough politics. I'm uncomfortable by the whole thing. All right, Kyle Robbins is here. Kyle, you're from Newcastle, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Graduated
raised
from the Newcastle Walter P. Chrysler High School, brought to you by Menards. Or
it was still Chrysler High School when I graduated.
All right, so we've dated him.
That changed.
06.
Class of 2006. All right. I would have been class of 2001 at Blue River, but I dropped out after the 6th grade. So I'm that's somewhere in there. And then Dakota's like
homeschooler.
Homeschooled after that. Dakota's much more recent model.
Yep.
All right. So
Kyle's 8 years older than me.
Did you guys start? Did you grow up racing, Kyle? Is it a family deal?
So yeah. So if you go back to the beginning, my dad's dad, Sonny, which he's been in Newcastle forever too. Worked at Goodwin Brothers for like 55 years or something like that.
At the time, the Indiana's first auto dealer or longest operating auto dealer.
And he was a service manager down there forever. But he raced outboards, which are small boats and stuff like that. So that was on my dad's side. My mom's side, he's also named Sonny. He was a drag racer. So this is kind of before my time. And then my dad, growing up, he raced AMA flat track professionally. So it was kind of probably inevitable that I was going to get bit by the bug.
All right. So what did they put you in first? What you start with?
When it kind of all started happening, I didn't get started till I was like 8 or 9, and Mom wanted nothing to do with the motorcycle stuff. And the reason my daddy got out of it was because the guys that were kind of running the whole deal, he wasn't happy with it anymore. They were still running AMA, so we didn't want to go back that route. So we started in quarter midgets over at, there's actually a quarter midget track off turn 2.
What is a quarter midget?
So pretty much what I run is like quarter scale size of it. They run like single cylinder Honda motors and Briggs & Stratton motors.
This is the kind of stuff you need to get your son in about 3 years.
Very young.
Yeah, they started him at 5, but I was kind of glad I started at 9 because I had a lot better understanding of how things worked. And, when they were explaining stuff to me about, hey, you did this wrong, hey, you did that wrong.
So
what is the size?
At the state fairgrounds, the quarter midget track there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the size difference of a quarter midget versus a go-kart?
Probably about the same. It just got a roll cage over it.
Okay. Safer.
Yeah.
Dakota.
Yeah.
All right.
And they only go in ovals. They don't do any road courses.
Gotcha.
quarter midgets.
I was thinking about this, just and we're going to get into the bigger USAC stuff now, but well, you guys are incredibly versatile in the series you're in now. What if you guys did run some road courses? What kind of a
well, I know
terror match would that
back
be?
in 2006, I don't know if you remember when they shook up the Silver Crown Series and they introduced that Gold Crown car that was supposed to be where they ran it on, like Kansas and Darlington and Homestead. I saw a video from a couple of years ago. They actually ran one of those cars at a road course. I want to say it was Aaron Pierce that drove it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. But it wasn't an actual race. They just took it out someplace and played around it
for a shakedown. Yeah.
Now those are $100,000 paperweights. So
you started racing quarter midgets, and then at some point you got out of the car and started working on some other teams, or did you? Is this all happening in parallel?
No. So let's say started when I was 8 or 9, running quarter midgets and ran. You can run those till you're 16. And we ran those till I was 16. Then you're
running against 5-year-olds?
No. Yeah. No, kind of the classes I was running.
Aren't going to be very fair.
No, and there's like junior and senior classes where I think it was like 9 or 10 was the cutoff between junior and senior, and then so I was running against 12, 13-year-olds, all that. But I had the problem was I was always like right on the cusp of 100 pounds, and there was like heavy classes and non-heavy classes. Well, you had to be above 100 pounds to run the heavy classes. Well, when I couldn't ever break that barrier, it seemed like, so I was always like 20, 30 pounds heavier than all these kids that were 2 or 3 years younger than me. So
yeah,
it's kind of like, I think it was finally about like 7th grade. I finally got
You needed more Burger King.
I know. Well, yeah, trust me, I was trying.
He's the race car driver trying to make weight the other way.
Yes. But no, so we ran those till I was 16. And then there's kind of a couple different options we could have gone. There's a little bit of mini sprint racing, which is kind of a little bit bigger than a quarter midget. And then they run 600cc motorcycle motors in them. And then the USAC at the time was coming out with the series they called the Ford Focus series, which was taking a pretty much Ford Focus engine out of a Ford Focus car, sealed. And there was a guy out in California, I think, that was kind of hopping them up, putting a different injection on them, different ignition. And you could buy the spec motor and then you run it in a full-size midget chassis. So it was kind of given an outlet for the national guys to get rid of their used stuff and like just another stepping stone to get into USAC.
I know Rex Norris III was running the same thing.
And that was the same time when I was running, when he was running.
That's a pretty big difference of Ford Focus engine versus a 600cc motorcycle engine.
Yeah. And the micro stuff now is pretty wild. They're almost spending as much money as you do if you go sprint car racing. So
just a ballpark. If we're looking and starting Dakota's fundraising for baby Jackson Davis's quarter midget career, what's he need to budget for the first year for 5-year-olds?
I bet you could get into a quarter midget for $2,500
to buy the quarter midget.
And you're not going to be spinning. You're not going to be throwing tires on it all the time and stuff like that. And the motors are, I don't know what a single cylinder Honda is, but I know we ran ours for 6 years and never rebuilt it. So they're as long as you take care of them, they're bulletproof.
He could be the Team Penske, Team Hendrick for like $5,000.
If you wanted to, but I'm sure there's guys out there that they go all tie, all carbon quarter midgets and kind of go a little over the top with
it's
it.
Like any other sport.
Yeah, there's always the extremes of everything.
Yeah. Some dad out there with his kid, and the dad's got this tricked out motorcycle that's like signed by Kid Rock and stuff. And
Spend as much as you want.
But the Focus series was really, kind of get back on that, it was really a good thing because so then they started running the Speedrome on Wednesday nights. So we could run there on Wednesday nights, and then there was a Midwestern series where they'd run on the weekends. So between, and that was still in high school at that point, I think I was a junior or senior, we could set the car up to run the Speedrome, and then if there was a dirt race or someplace else on the pavement for the Midwest series on the weekends, we'd switch over and go run that.
So you're getting the experience in this car.
Yeah, and that and different size tracks and all over the place. We ran up in Angel Park, Wisconsin. We ran over in Ohio.
As a teenager.
Yeah, as a teenager.
And still trying to get back to school for the next morning.
Yeah, so the funny thing about running up in Angel Park, they actually run on Sundays. So quite a few times we ran up there. We would leave Sunday morning like about 4 or 5 o'clock, drive up there and race, drive home, take a shower. Dad would go to work. I'd go to school.
And Kyle probably had the easy part.
He'd probably drive most of it at that point. So, but like I said, it was a really good series there for a while, and then it kind of got a little out of hand. People started building like pavement only cars and stuff like that, and like anything.
Now you need two race cars.
Well, yeah, like that. And then once once money got involved in it, it kind of ruined it.
So you are getting out of the Ford Focus series and you get hooked up with a guy named Brian Clausen?
Actually, we get started in sprint cars. So
Okay.
we get out of the Focus series, and that was like, I ran this Focus series 2004, 2005. And then we were really in kind of a dilemma because we ran a lot of pavement right then with the midgets and stuff. And we were tossing around whether we were going to go, pavement ridge racing. But like, then you look around Indiana, that's just a hotbed of non-wing dirt sprint cars. So we kind of had our eyes set on, we were going to buy a pavement midget and do, all the pavement stuff around here, big IRP races and stuff like that. And then I went out and did a sprint car school in California from Corey Cruzman, who's a multi-time Indiana Sprint Week champion. And we were talking to him after we got done running that day. And, we're like, hey, we were thinking about this plan or this plan. And he's like, if you live in Indiana, you'd be stupid not to run dirt sprint cars just because the amount of time and track time you can run. Because back then, you could run 3 nights a week.
What's the difference between a sprint car and a dirt sprint car?
So, they're the same thing, pretty much. Mostly all the sprint cars now, like pavement sprint cars at Anderson for the low 500. They're the same thing. Cars a little different, but then they run the same engines and all the running gear is pretty much the same.
Okay. You're just putting beefier tires on?
Yeah, well, so pavement, you run slicks all the time, and dirt tires obviously treaded and stuff like that. But around here, we all run 410 cubic inch motors in the sprint cars.
Does rain shut down a dirt race like it will a pavement race?
Depends on what promoter you're talking to and how much money they want to make. I think a couple years ago, Gas City, it probably seemed like it rained almost 2 inches in like an hour, and he's like, "Nope, we're still going." So it was like we got done like at 2 a.m.
That seems like it'd be pretty hazardous to the racers.
Well, no, they finally got it worked in. It was like more like, they take the skid out there and blade it and try and turn it up, and then you end up packing it for an hour and stuff like that. But there's some guys like, it rains half an inch, they'll pull the plug, but it just depends on the type of show and how bad they want to
What do
get
you
in.
prefer?
Dry, not rain.
No, do you prefer someone to cancel, or do you prefer just
if you're already there, you might as well be racing,
Okay.
I was at Eldora the first time I had a camper. It was in 2006, and they raced
24 hours
till 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
It just, and like, I was so thankful I had a camper because
We
it
were
would
there.
just rain and then go back and rain and you go back. And yeah, somebody has a sign if you go there for it was 4 weekend, and somebody has a sign up that says, "I was there," and then like last green flag dropped like 6:23 a.m. on Sunday. And it's because they had somewhere to be the next day, so they couldn't hang around. So run them all night.
Yeah. I think the Silver Crown feature, actually, the Victory Lane photo, you can kind of see the sun coming up in the background.
Insanity.
So, but yeah, we got into sprint cars, and then in 06, kind of did it on our own for a couple of years. And like I said, my dad's, all his background was in motorcycles. So everything in 4 wheels, we were learning from somebody else on the fly, just kind of trying to pick up information where we got it. And the sprint car deal in Indiana is so cutthroat. Back then, a lot of the guys that were kind of getting out of it, and now they were, in their mid-30s and in their prime, kicking everybody's ass. So, and like you go to a local show, there'd be 35, 40 cars on a given night, and you're only starting 20. So you're sending 20 guys home every night. They aren't even getting any. You're just getting heat race and B main laps. So we did that from kind of 07 and 08 on my own. Then kind of just felt like, man, I just need to get with somebody that kind of gets me on the right path and just kind of get information.
Learn the industry a little bit.
Well, yeah, that, and just get information from one person, try and take it from a bunch of people. So then I had reached out to Tim Clausen, and we'd had some discussions, and then we ended up actually taking our sprint car program over there in-house in Brian's shop in 09, yes.
Who is Brian Clausen?
So Brian is he was an amazing talent. He was originally from California, moved out here, and then amazing open wheel USAC star. Got to start, I think, 3 times in Indy 500.
Yeah, he ran 3 Indy 500s.
Yeah, and one time was a development driver for Ganassi and down south in NASCAR. But then that was kind of when the economy went to crap there around
2009, 2008.
So, but yeah, he was a really good friend. I was able to live with him for 2 years, and then he tragically lost his life there. I think in 2000,
3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
somewhere in that range. And then there's been a legacy of organ donation and other things that his family and there's a Driven to Save Lives campaign that group has continued on, encouraging that.
So how do you get signed on to a team? Like, what are they just impressed with your record?
No, it was more or less, it was kind of like almost like we were wanting to learn off of them. So like we worked out a deal where I could, bring my car into their shop, and it was still my cars and our motors and stuff like that. I was just almost kind of under their umbrella to learn off their information and, help me further my career.
Gotcha.
Point.
So you got to spend a couple 3 years with that group.
4 years. And like I said, we started off where we were running our own stuff. And actually 2009, when I got my first win, it's a pretty cool story. So, excuse me, but, we ran, 20, 30 races probably before sprint week. And with that time, we only had one car and one motor. And we kind of timed out where we were going to get our one motor refreshing before sprint week. So we took it out a couple weeks before. And we were kind of hanging around the shop. And it was like the week before sprint week was supposed to start. We came back from lunch one day, and Brian had a couple engines for his team at that time. And we came back from lunch, and goes over and rolls this engine over in front of my car. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, he said, we're going racing Gas City Friday. I'm like, in my car? He's like, yeah, put it in. So we ended up spending the rest of the week putting that engine in my car. And then
you were just going to be down waiting.
Yeah, we weren't going to go back to the next week when Indiana Sprint Week started. So we spent the rest of that week putting it in my car, and then we ended up going up to Gas City on Friday with pretty much a standard Sprint Week crowd. There was at least 35, 40 cars, and won the heat, started up front, and I think I took the lead on lap like 10 or 12 and never looked back, and that's how I got my first sprint car win.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a picture in my dad's office of Brian and all of us on the front stretch in Victory Lane. It was I think he was almost more happier for me at that point than I was.
That's very cool.
Describe to Dakota what Sprint Week is.
So Sprint Week is in Indiana. So there's right now, if I list off, there's a track in Gas City, Kokomo, Putnamville, Bloomington, Paragon, Evansville, and Terre Haute. So in the latter part of July, in a span of 10 days, you run all those tracks.
It's just a traveling circus.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So the first weekend, the way they have it broke up now is you run Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It usually goes Gas City, Kokomo, Lawrenceburg. And you'll have Monday, Tuesday off, and then you run Terre Haute, Putnamville, Bloomington, Hobstop. It's just boom, 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 boom.
So Eastern Indiana, then Western
How
Indiana.
beat are you at the end of that week?
Not too bad. I mean, you're wore out. You try to. I mean, at that point in July, if you're running sprint cars full time, you're conditioned to that point. You're usually running 2-3 nights a week already, anyways.
Oh, okay.
So it's. I mean, the heat sucks. Indiana in July is probably not the most funnest place to be. But
wearing a fire suit.
Yeah, fire suit, sweating your butt off. But
they don't have AC in those cars.
No, not no air control.
But
They don't even have a starter. They have to get push started.
Well, the Silver Crown cars do.
Well,
but that's later in the show. But yeah, so Sprint Week's pretty grueling.
your sprint car at the your bump starter, right?
Yeah,
Four-wheelers, whatever.
Yeah, drive shaft runs right between your legs.
You meet people from all over the country. I mean, spectators.
Yeah, and that's like I said, it's like a traveling circus. There's, people with campers and fifth wheels that as soon as you're done loading up and going on, they're loading up and going to the next one with you.
My wife's grandfather, that was his favorite week of the year. And he got a truck camper, and he was gone for the week, and that was where he was at. Just followed it wherever he went.
And Kyle was talking about the Brian coming from California. I mean, it's amazing how many sprint car drivers are from out of the state that come because so many tracks here in the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a kid that's running the full USAC deal this year, just moved out here from California just because the opportunity to race more is so much more than out there, especially now in the pandemic. They didn't get a race at all last year.
So in the sprint car world, there's basically three major regions, I would say, right? You've got the California folks, you've got the Indiana Midwestern group, and then you've got the Northeast, the New York.
Yeah, I'd probably say Indiana is definitely the hotbed for non-wing. And then Southern California, there's a little bit. Northern California has some non-wing stuff. Northern California has a lot of wing stuff. Iowa and Nebraska has got some, actually Knoxville has got a big presence out there.
Absolutely.
And then probably the biggest showing besides the Outlaws is Pennsylvania. And those people just eat sprint car racing up out there.
All right. So you go from the Clausen group, and then you got connected with Damian Gardner.
So I was with Clausen through, I think it was 2011, and it was kind of just, and we had a great group of guys. Like I said, we ended up winning 2 midget championships with Brian and the other guys we were with, and it was kind of just a point I was just ready to kind of do something a little different and kind of be on my own. I was actually going to go do the World Outlaw Tour with a guy named Bill Rose, and kind of did that for a month or two and just really wasn't too sure about the deal. And then ended up, one of the guys on Damien's team had left, and they needed another guy. So kind of just got in touch with him and ended up being able to run the whole, work the whole USAC tour with him that year, and learned a lot. And there's a lot of people, I don't know if you know who Damien is. He's from Northern California or whatever, moved out here, and he's pretty fiery guy and just got a passion to win more than anybody I'd ever worked with. And a lot of people, I mean, he went through a lot of crew guys just because people didn't, think they could really work with him. But he was probably one of the guys that taught me the most as far as my time working and stuff.
So you're preparing the cars as well as running.
Yeah, I was mainly, my job with him was like to deal with all the tires, groove them, when I get to the racetrack, set the bleeders, all that type of stuff. And then during the week, the other guy that helped us, he kind of did the car stuff. And Damien was real into trying stuff and kind of trying to be, innovator. And I was the only guy that knew how to weld and kind of fabricate. So I got to do a lot more of that and kind of tried my hand at some of that stuff. So that was pretty cool.
So describe grooving tires. You're taking a factory set of tires and you're modifying them.
Well, I mean, they come, so Hoosier comes, they'll have like a standard block pattern, but then depending on the style of track you're running, you're going to want to groove them, either, to get heat out of them or to create heat in the tire or grip or either way. So I always had a notebook of kind of how I grooved them. And we even got to a point where on the half-mile tires, I made a little jig because we were having such a bad problem with blistering. We actually drilled like 1/8-inch deep holes in all the blocks. And it took about like 3.5 hours to do one tire. It worked, but it wasn't fun.
That's a lot of customization.
Yeah. So it's all about trial and error. You just you tried something here or there. If it worked, it didn't. If it did, try and keep doing or add to it.
Racing at that level, you're working off a notebook. You don't have an engineer telling you to do this or that.
No,
you're figuring it out at gut feel.
Yeah. Well, that and just racing a lot. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's like, that's why it's kind of harder for me to step back into the sprint car game now because, last year I think I ran 2 sprint car races where most of the guys I'm trying to run with ran, 70 or 80. It's just once you get in that mode of racing a lot more, everything happens a lot slower the more you race.
And it's so competitive. It's so competitive. You're not sharing a lot of information. You might be looking over somebody's car and seeing what they're doing, but they're not going to volunteer information.
Yeah, no, I mean, we all kind of talk amongst ourselves, but they're not going to go over and tell you exactly what your shock numbers are or what bars they got in the back and stuff like that. So.
All right. So then you spend your time with Gardner, and then you end up with Bob East, who I know is the chassis builder.
So, yes. So, Bob, and actually how I met Bob was Damien's crew chief. So, I actually kind of had another year under my belt with him before I started working with him. And the bad part about Damien's deal was so he was sponsored by an electrical company out of New York. And this guy is like a long-time sprint car fan. He was an older guy. And I think he sponsored a couple Indy cars, Pace Electronics.
Okay. Back
in the day. But, anyways, his name is Pat Kehoe, but in late August that year, he passed away. Well, at that point, like 2 weeks after he passed away, Damien got a letter from his wife's lawyer saying everything's cut off.
Money's not coming anymore.
Yep. Your next couple sponsorship payments are gone. And because my check, actually, I was considered an employee of Pace. So that's where my paycheck came from. So that went away. And so we kind of had to scrape, and luckily he was very smart with how he spent stuff because Pat would actually supposedly gave him bonuses for staying under budget, and he was just a very smart and methodical how he ran his race team. So luckily we were able to finish out the year and stuff like that. And then at the time, Bob still had his midgets in his pavement sprint car, and he needed somebody to come work on them. So kind of just transitioned into that.
So that team became that.
Yeah.
So as a guy that the grassroots pavement sprints, that's not my background in racing, but I know that that's a legendary name, right?
Yes.
That's going back Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon.
As a kid, if you would have told me when I was 25 years old, you'd be Bob's personal guy working on all those personal cars, I would have told you you're crazy.
Yeah.
Because I just never would have thought that would have been possible, or even
it's the first name you'd name, right?
Yeah, I almost look at Bob right now. The relationship we have, he's been like a second father to me. So,
and his logo is still on your car.
Yes, yeah, he's been such a great mentor to me in my career, and just any questions I've ever had or helped me through stuff, he's been there for me.
So you've transitioned from that now to you and your family are running your own operation from Riley Road here in Newcastle.
Yeah, so I worked for Bob for 3 years, and then I'd met my wife in the process, and we were kind of looking at the future and stuff like that. The racing scene around Indiana is not like the guys on the Outlaws, or they've all got big time sponsors, and it's a little easier to make money and have multiple crew guys, where like the Indiana thing's kind of a lot of mom and pop deals and
locals.
Stuff locals. And there's a couple of big deals, and like back in the early 2000s, TSR had 2 teams, Case Kane had 2 teams, and then kind of after 2010, all those started drying up. So it was just then a lot of guys started owning their own cars. So really, they were working on them themselves pretty much. So for me, looking at it on a long-term plan, I just didn't really see a whole lot. If I wanted to buy a house and cars and have kids, it just wasn't quite there. So there was an opportunity for me to go back to my dad's machine shop.
So you were doing that full time.
Yeah.
That was full-time
and
job.
When I worked for Damien, I ran once that year at the end of the year. And then when I worked for Bob, I probably maybe got, 5 to 7 races in each year when I was working for him. So then we come back in, after I started working back out at the machine shop, we kind of built the sprint car stuff back up and started running it quite a bit. I think in the year before my son was born, I think we ended up running like almost 55 races that year. So
that's busy.
Yeah.
That's hot.
Yeah. That's when my wife told me she's kind of get it out of the way before the baby comes.
So that happens, but then you transition over into the Silver Crown Series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is not, that's in some ways it's the pinnacle of USAC.
Mm-hmm. Right? It's definitely, I can tell you the exact moment where I got hooked on racing was, I was like 7-8 years old. My dad took me to the Hoosier 100, and qualifying got rained out. So they ended up starting like 42 cars. And the second I heard all those cars go down the front stretch at the Indian Mile, that's when I was hooked. I can still remember that sound in my head. So the moment
it was a dirt track racer that actually was the first person that got me hooked as well. And I didn't even get to see him race, but the story of it, there's a guy, a 410 wing sprint car driver from New York State, turned out to be my uncle's cousin, a guy named Adrian Flath. So if you Google that name, you'll find pictures of him. And there's one of these groups that writes books about racers. Zach's going to know it off the top of his head probably, but they
like the Floyd Clymer yearbooks or something.
No. They write bios, but anyway, there's a special story about him. I Googled him. So I'm like, I wonder if he actually was relevant or not, because first time I'd met the guy, and I had the hero card. I popped his name in, and 2 seconds later, the hero card that I had in 1992 popped up. I'm like, oh, damn, that was pretty cool. But a guy named Adrian Flath, that was my first connection. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if we went to see him or we went to a dirt track when I was 7 or 8 up at Frogtown in New York State. Same deal though. You hear the cars for the first time and I'm in.
Yeah.
So, but
you hear those V8s go down the street.
At 8 years old, I couldn't get my dad to take me to the racetrack all the time. So I had ESPN, so I got hooked on what I could see.
Mm-hmm. And you were probably still around Thursday Night Thunder at that point. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. At the time it was a perfect time to have been aware or see that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's right as Jeff Gordon is coming out of that and has moved south.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's cool too. Like Bob was actually all those, like Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Case Kane, he was their mentor when they were in USAC. So it was cool just to be able to work with him from that standpoint too.
So you guys made the decision to buy a Silver Crown car, or acquired it. It's not your sprint car.
No. So we were at the Little 500, and I was helping Bob in 2017, and me and Dad were kind of just talking, hey, it's something we'd always wanted to do because the Hoosier 100 was meant so near and dear to my heart about them just being a special race in general, just growing up there at the fairgrounds and racing off turn 2 and stuff. So that was kind of the plan originally. We got a dirt car off of Bob, and that's what we were going to do. We were just going to run the dirt stuff. And then I had a friend that had a pavement car, and we were talking back and forth, and we were talking about renting it, and then he kind of made us a deal we couldn't refuse. So then we ended up, here we go, we're going to run the whole deal. So and the pavement car deal came together real late. So I think the first race was in Phoenix at maybe the first part of April, and we didn't get that car till like the end of February. So, and it was pretty much ready to go. We didn't do a whole lot to it, but going to Phoenix International for your first Silver Crown race was a pretty eye-opening experience. After because I hadn't ran pavement since 2005, and that was in a Focus car that had 180 horsepower, and now you're going in a Crown car.
The only races that I've been to around here have been Mount Lawn and Anderson. Mm-hmm. My wife and I used to go to Anderson a lot back when we were dating. Tell me what the difference is between a USAC race and something that I'd just go watch on a Saturday night in Anderson.
I guess I would say it's a little bit more professional. I mean, most of those guys that are running USAC full time that are winning races and win championships are racing for a living. I mean, that's all they do. That's what they put food
You're
on their table.
approaching professional levels.
Yes, I mean,
some of them are professional.
Yeah, you would consider them professionals. That's what they're doing for they don't have any other jobs. That's how they support their family. So,
but you're doing this balance. You're in this series, but you're also working full time, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I think is interesting about your situation is that you're running in the highest level of USAC, but you're working out of a 2-car garage on a suburban street in Indiana with a hauler a semi hauler, sitting in the driveway, and you're working full time, and you're making the haul to Pennsylvania or wherever else to run.
And that's what kind of the Silver Crown Series worked out a little bit better than the sprint car stuff, just because like I said, the sprint car stuff, I feel like to be competitive, you definitely have to run over 50, 60 races a year just to be in the ballpark. You can show up and make the show, but realistically, you're probably not going to have a shot to win just because those guys are so on top of their game. Where the Silver Crown stuff, it's 12 races a year. It's kind of spread out. You got time to do the maintenance and stuff on the cars, and the style of racing just suits me a lot better, I guess. I don't know. I fell in love with it as soon as we started doing it.
If you're doing 60, 78, or sometimes 80 races a year, then I would imagine your car's getting pretty beat up.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys that are racing for a living, they've got 2-3 cars in rotation, so they're constantly switching out parts, and that's like at Damien's. We had a log of every rear end, every steering gear, every motor, and X amount of races it came out when it got refreshed.
It's not a hobby.
No, it's full. Like Damien's deal, it was a full blown 53-foot semi stacker where we carried a spare car to every race, and we bought $1,500 tires a week.
Wow. Okay.
So I just to paint the picture on the Silver Crown Series for folks that just have a passing knowledge, some of the past champions of the series are Dave Blaney, Gary Bentonhausen, Jack Hewitt, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman, Cody Swanson, AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti. Like the list going back for the last 40 years is the who's who.
Yeah, that was pretty much the ticket to get you to the 500 back in the day.
Right.
So that's why you still see like Foyt and Mario and all those guys that they'd still run the Hoosier 100 or any of those races and then still run the 500 along with it.
So in this schedule for the current year for 2021, as we're getting into it, has a lot of incredibly local Indiana or regional races, but it does travel. It's not always the same. You don't have the same dates, same places every year. Yeah.
And last year I was really bummed that COVID kind of screwed everything up. It's kind of out of our hands, but we were supposed to go to Nashville. That was going to be real cool. We were going to get around Gateway and,
St. Louis area.
Yeah. I'd been there to see the Crown Cars once, and it was pretty insane to see him go down the straightaway there, as big as that place is.
So for locals here that want to see some races that you'll be in, Winchester is your first race in April.
May May 9th.
Is it May? Okay.
Yep.
Lucas Oil Raceway, which is O'Reilly Raceway, IRP out on the west side of Indianapolis. Those are both pavement. Winchester's high banked. IRP is a little bit flatter. And then the Indiana State Fair, which has been eliminated like 3 times, but you're going to run there again.
Yeah. So this is, I think, the 3rd annual Last Hoosier 100. So, but because I think it was 2 years ago that they told us that the fairgrounds and the horse people had struck a deal to, for some reason, put limestone on it because they felt like it was going to be better for the horses. So then we ran the last one, and then last year it wasn't even on the schedule. And kind of when all the pandemic happened, because we didn't even get to run a crown race till August. So, but from what I heard, the fairgrounds actually reached out to USAC because, they were shut down and they really didn't have any.
Looking for something.
Yeah, they didn't have anything coming in because there's no shows, there's no anything. So supposedly the fairgrounds actually reached out because they hadn't. It was supposed to be a collaboration between the casino and the state fair board because I guess that's where the all the racing horses are kept there at the fairgrounds, that they were going to put all that or pay for that limestone to be put on. And, they said, hey, we'll do it again. And then they were this is supposedly the last one.
Might have to come this time. And this will be in the month of May. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's like the week of the Indy 500.
Thursday.
I think I looked. It was the Thursday before the Indy 500 this year. So Zach, are you in? Is it plausible?
I might.
We might not do the podcast that week, and we'll go over from the campground.
That's my lazy day from the track, but yeah, we'll try.
We can get you guys some pit passes.
See, we're in.
Hey, I never get pit passes. You guys are important.
You gotta ask, Mike. You just show up. Yeah.
I think we might have to go. All right, and then Kevin can't go because he'll be camping. He's off here in the distance, and you're not invited. You're down. You're down in Cincinnati camping.
Jeremiah has it. You have 7 dirt and 5 pavement races.
Yep.
Eldora. We didn't mention Eldora or either one of the other big crown jewel. Dirt races.
Actually, we're in Eldora twice. So the first one's in June, and it's with Stewart and Everham's new series.
The SR8.
Yeah, whatever, the SRX. VSX. But actually, the fun thing about that weekend is actually the night before we get to run the pavement car in Madison, Wisconsin. So we'll run the pavement car in Madison, Wisconsin on Friday, drive all the way, which is like 6-7 hours away from here, drive home, unload the pavement car, unload all the pavement stuff, load up all the dirt stuff, load up the dirt car, and then head to Eldora the next day.
My question was, which is your favorite? Like out of a pure just enjoyment, I really like doing this.
The enjoyment, running the dirt car on the miles. Like Indy, Springfield, and Coyne. That's by far the funnest. Now, the pavement, since I've got back into it, is from a challenge standpoint, I like it way more because it's the dirt stuff. I wouldn't say I had it down, but it just came natural to me because of what I did for so long.
It's an incredibly different style. In the dirt, you're running sideways, and when you're running asphalt, that you sent me a GoPro video.
Yeah,
I think at Winchester or Salem, and it's just insanity.
Yeah, and I mean the pavement car is just so much more stuck, and they're 2 totally different cars. I mean, the dirt car sits up a lot higher. It's 4 torsion bars, doesn't have a coil on it, where the pavement cars suck to the ground. It's got 4 coils. They're both purposely built race cars.
Same series, 2 different cars.
Yeah. I mean, Bob used to build a combo car back in the day, but pretty much anybody now that runs the full deal has a dirt and a pavement car.
So let's talk about it. It's a family run operated team. You guys roll out and you're doing a race that's pretend like you were going to go to St. Louis. How many people are going? So what's it look like?
So me and my dad, obviously, and then Gene Ingram, Newcastle guy. He spots for me because all the Silver Crown races, it's mandatory you have a spotter. So he's kind of stepped up in that role, and it's been nice to have somebody that's consistent and there all the time. And he's been to every single one since we started back in 2018. And then I got a buddy I kind of met through racing back when we ran sprint cars. His name's Tyler Hewitt. He comes and helps when he can. I think he pretty much got to come to all of them, but one of them last year. But so really, it's just us. My wife comes sometimes, depending on scheduling and stuff like that, because sometimes they're on Fridays or Sundays, and she likes to be home for work and stuff.
All right. So then, do you have sponsors to thank? If we have racers in here, we have to talk about how you actually get on the track and how you make it happen.
Yeah. So we have a lot of product sponsors. Willwood Brakes. Evan Jackson, he does all our engines. He's up in Gaston, kind of a local guy, but he's really smart, and he's built us a lot of good engines. Obviously, Bob East, he's been so valuable to my career and everything. Just not only from the Silver Crown side, but just, especially when at the point in my career when I worked for him, it was kind of like I'd learned all the stuff about how to build a good car, how to build, sound pieces and the right equipment and stuff like that. Where when I was with him, I actually got to learn more of the setup side of it because he'd done it for so long. Any question I had is kind of like been there, done that. Here's my angle on it. We can try this, we can try that. And it was just a plethora of knowledge to gain from him.
So what's it look like? You've got a 2-car garage where you've thrown everything out of it but the race car, I'm sure.
So really it's 2-car, but then in the winter it goes down to like 1.5 because my mom wants to park her car in the
She
garage.
wants to get the car inside. So you've got 2 race cars and countless motors. What's
No, so like each car's got a motor, and then we've got a spare motor from when we originally bought the pavement car. We took that, the second year we had the pavement car, we kind of built it up and kind of went through it because really, like I think I told you, I think I traced it back. It's like a 2002, so it's probably almost like a vintage race car at this point. But it needed some updates, like we threw a new rear end in it and steering gear and stuff like that. So and it had an older motor in it, so we kind of kept that aside for our spare and updated that program side of it. So,
and I cut you off. You didn't mention the big name that's on the side of it.
Magnum Machine Tool.
Magnum Machine Tool of Henry County.
Yeah. So it's been cool to come back in the machine shop since I got there because before when we were growing up racing, I knew how to weld. I took vocational school here at Newcastle, figured all that out, and I always kind of felt like, well, if I ever wanted to pick up a machine, Dad would always show me how to do it. And since I've come back in machining now, it's kind of cool because I can be a lot more creative. And if I like the pavement car, I could never find somebody that made a bracket to bring the steering gear closer to me. So I'm like, well, we got some scrap aluminum out there. I'll draw something up and figure out how to make it, and made my own steering bracket for that. And I've made a couple other parts for the dirt car and stuff. So it's cool to take some from pen and paper and put it into reality.
So, are you selling these out of the back of the truck to everybody else now?
No, yeah, I'm just making it for
or these
myself.
are your competitive advantage?
No, this is stuff I'm just doing for myself.
You have made parts for other manufacturers.
Well, we just finished up a run for actually the Silver Crown cars were in a clutch. So and Tilton used to do all the clutch stuff. Well, Bob kind of bought all the stuff out from them because they didn't want to handle it anymore. Well, he was down to his last casting, but to get around a castings made, he's got to have X amount, and he didn't want to pay to have X amount of castings made, so we just ended up making some billet housings for him for his clutch housings. So
the cutting tool salesman just walked in the door here too. So the whole supply chain has arrived for the USAC series. He says he's got a call on y'all tomorrow.
And they're machining some blocks out there for not for sprint cars,
for drag racing. Yeah, there's a guy, Kent Redder, out of New York. He has small block Mopars that we're doing all the rough machining on for those too.
So how many teams are there in this in the Silver Crown Series? Is it everybody? Same people show up at all 12 races?
No, so there's a group of guys that just have dirt cars, and there's a couple guys that just have pavement cars. There's probably I'd probably say 15 to 20 maybe that have both, but there's probably a solid 15 that run the whole deal. So,
but every race you'll probably have 25.
Yeah, and actually, since they've kind of had to build it back up from when they had the Gold Crown deal, and then they kind of had another drop in car count when they kind of changed the fuel up a little bit. It kind of hurt cars, but they've since we've started, I think the first year the pavement car count was like anywhere between like 15 and 18. Last year we were up around like 22 to 25. So I know last year was the first time Bob built a couple new pavement Silver Crown cars in like 7-8 years.
So we talk about on the show quite often that this show it pays a lot for itself.
Mm-hmm.
It would totally pay for itself if everyone listening to this right now would go to patreon.com/Boss Hog of Liberty.
If your electric bills were cheaper.
Yeah.
I keep writing notes to the landlord.
What does it take for a racing team like you have to pay for itself?
I mean, the Silver Crown races, by far as from USAC's purse standpoint, they pay the best. I think it pays like $850 to start, and it's like the miles are all $10,000 to win, and the half miles are like $8. So if you run good, I think if you run the top 10, it's like $1,000 to $1,200. So by then, almost by then
you're getting close to paying for your rig's fuel to get to the track.
Yeah, you're probably. I mean, like if you finish in the top 10, you're probably covering your tires and your fuel because you think that when you fill that thing up in the back with 75 gallons of methanol, that's probably about $350. So
you got to fuel you've got a lot of expenses, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You guys have to eat. You've got either you're staying in the truck or you're in and out in the day, but you've got truck fuel, you've got repairs, you've got the costs just for that series alone are just incredible to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not, I mean, like you said, it's only 12 races. So like the guys that are running 60, 70 sprinkler races are probably spending, 3 times what we're spending. But, and it's not, I mean, it kind of stinks because, we do have to go to, Madison, Wisconsin for one race and come back, or, go to Phoenix for one race and come back. But it's the Silver Crown Series always has this, like, I don't know, feel to it. They're all big events, and that's another thing I like about the Silver Crown Series is it doesn't just feel like, okay, I'm going up to Gas City on Friday or I'm going to Anderson on Saturday. It's like, this is the Hoosier 100, before this is like the one race that rivaled Indy 500 as far as pay,
When we went to Memphis, it was a 2-day deal.
We went and they gave us one day to practice. And then
is it the little Memphis half mile?
No, it's the big
dirt?
Track. They used to run NASCAR.
Yeah, the NASCAR truck ran there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to whenever we were talking about like the quarter midgets and things, we were talking about how hard it was to compete against people who, if you were a person who just sunk $2,500 into this to get your kid a good, fun hobby to do versus a person that had a lot of money to blow and was spending $10,000 to $15,000. Is that something that you experience in the Silver Crown Series?
I mean, it's also all what you do with it too. You could have the best stuff money can buy, but if you don't know how to set it up or take care of your equipment and stuff like that, it doesn't mean anything. So that's where I feel very grateful that I've been able to work with the people I got to work with and learn the knowledge that I did, that I can apply that to my race team now and try to get the best results we can.
I think Dakota's thinking about Jackson.
These are the questions. You put him in one of those, and it turns out he's fast.
I had a lot of fun
Next
drag racing on Jeremiah's wedding day, or go-kart racing.
We were go-kart racing.
Yeah.
He's so new. We literally starting with Dakota from the very beginning here.
Okay.
He literally looked at the table and said, "Is that a tire or a wheel?" Sitting on the table.
No, I didn't. I said, "That's a tire," and I went, "No, that's a wheel."
We probably need to get him to a dirt race before we get him to a pavement race.
How far away can your permission slip take you? Can you get to the Indiana State Fairgrounds?
Permission slip.
You got to abandon Audrey and Jackson at home.
I was just thinking about. I had a hell of a lot of fun racing go-karts by Flying J. All I want to do is do that again.
That's called Newcastle Motorsports.
Probably if you're going to take him to his first race, it'd probably be better to take him to Eldora. Because that'd be
right now. He wouldn't really remember anything.
It would be an eye-opening experience.
We're talking about you or Jackson? Yeah, you.
Okay.
Eldora is a great time. It's a fun place.
Well, they voted, Dakota.
Eldora.
We're going to Ohio.
It's close. It's probably as close as the state fairgrounds.
I hear rumors of a pavement sprint car. Is there any truth to that rumor?
Well, maybe, possibly.
Well, that's a firm no comment, Mike.
So there'd be an Anderson race for you too.
Yeah, they've done a really good job. The guy that owns Anderson and Casey Kohler, that is the manager over at IRP, done a really good job about trying to bring pavement racing back because I think the USAC was still doing it in the early 2010s, and then it kind of just the interest in it lost it, and they felt like the cost was getting too high, so they just kind of squelched the midgets, squelched the sprint cars, and it kind of really the only pavement sprint car non-wing race around here was the Little 500 that kind of kept that alive. And the last couple of years, I think they've even had to bump people out at the Little 500.
Anderson used to have the school buses.
Yeah.
What do you got to do to be one of those guys?
Yeah.
Well,
carry your balls around in a wheelbarrow.
Speaking of Anderson, and it makes me think of do you guys have any sort of reality TV vlogging going on? I know the F1 guys have got the Driven to Succeed. Anderson had the HBO special.
Yes.
Is there anybody following the Silver Crown series around, like in Dirty Driving?
Since USAC hooked up with Flow, and I know you said you watch quite a bit on Flow.
Kevin over here is Mr. Flow Racing. I steal his signal.
I would preach to anybody for $150. It's the best bargain you can have. You can, especially since it's now they've got all 3 USAC series. They've got the All Stars. They've got, I think, the ASCS 360 series, and let alone there's a couple of local PA tracks. I mean, I think it figured it up last year for all the races. It ended up being like almost 50 cents a race or something.
We turned on Flow, and Kevin's watching stuff from towns in California, Temecula, California, or something. Just
Do you remember must-see racing at Bristol?
I've seen YouTube clips of it. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, those guys have balls.
Because I was talking about the haves and the have-nots, and the interesting thing is Eldora is that they run now for Forecon they run World of Outlaws Friday night, and then Saturday night they run the 3 USAC series, and they all roll in Saturday, but they're not allowed in at a certain time. So you get to see all their rigs outside, like lined up because they line up in the campground. And it's everything from, I don't think there's anybody that runs open trailers that I've seen, but just like a trailer that you can tell that they've been using since like 1985 and the truck matches. And then here comes Casey Kane Racing that's got a full semi that it would fit in at a NASCAR race. Mm-hmm. And somebody, I don't know who runs Toyota, but there'll be a Toyota rig. And they're like, the rig is worth more than probably what some of the guys' budgets are, but they're all competitive when it comes out. Usually it's, those guys aren't necessarily dominating.
I keep driving by Kyle's race shop, and I know there's big money over there because there's concrete work constantly. Every time I look, there's a bigger truck and there's more concrete work.
It's trying to get it in there is the problem.
And that 2-car garage isn't really a 2-car garage. It goes back there a long way.
We just added. Last year we added another bay back.
I was wondering if somebody got a patio.
Well, yeah, mom got her patio, and Dad got another bay in the garage. So. But speaking of open trailers,
thank God
there's actually
you don't live in Henry Township and you're in the city limits, because Comrade Darren Jacobs would be all over you.
Well,
guys
yeah, I'm surprised we haven't gotten in trouble for that no semi sign on Riley Road. So
it's a local delivery. I think you're exempt.
Yeah, but speaking of open trailers, there's actually a guy from Iowa named Robert Bell that tows out to almost all USAC races on an open trailer. He's just a good old boy, and he comes and maybe doesn't make the show or whatever, but he doesn't care. He's just living life. And I don't know if it's on Flow or there's a or maybe Jack Slash. There's a clip of him where he drove from Iowa with an open trailer car on it to Florida to race, and he said he was like 80 miles from the track or whatever, and his radiator blew in his truck. He's like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, so I got to get to the track somehow. So he said he was looking in the back of his truck, and he said, he saw his jack handle there, and he said, I got a couple hose clamps. He sawed off the end of his jack handle, put it as a splice in his radiator hose clamped it off, and made it to the track.
You got there.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
Ingenuity, man. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll wrap up our racing talk here tonight with everybody wants to be a dirt racer now. Mm-hmm. NASCAR, the Winston Nextel Cup Series, brought to you by Sprint and Xfinity, along with Budweiser and Busch Beer. They're going to do the Bristol Cup race on dirt. Mm-hmm. Is anybody other than Kyle Larson or Bell going to win this race?
I mean, I'd say it'd be hard to bet against them, but
because they both won races this year on
the thing about the truck races. I mean, yeah, Bell and Larson won it, but the couple of years, the guys that have won it haven't even been dirt guys. Like Bubba Wallace won it, and he said he didn't have a lick of dirt experience, when he did. Yeah. And it's so drastically different from what those types of cars are to purpose-built, sprint cars, dirt late models and stuff. And because I think they were testing, full-blown super late models there the other night, and they were only a half a second off the Cup cars. And that was the late model. I'm pretty interested to see how fast the sprint cars go there.
It's gonna be so they're putting the dirt in for that, but everybody's gonna run. They're gonna run sprint cars. They're gonna run everybody on this track.
I'm not sure if the sprint cars are supposed to run the weeks before or the week after, but they're in the World Outlaws late models and the World Outlaws sprint cars down there too.
You going, Mike? No.
I've been to Bristol, but
not for that.
I want to see a dirt race.
Danny's in the back row. Danny Morrell has made the grand reappearance for the first time in the studio in a year.
Well, I didn't play basketball.
Basketball tonight. Yeah.
So they're putting dirt down on the track?
They already have, yes. He asked if they're putting dirt down on the track.
You look ridiculous.
I'm trying to listen to you. He tells me I look ridiculous.
Well, they did it before because they ran the Outlaws there in 2002. And I don't know actually how deep. I know they said that it's not actually banked what that concrete track is. They've actually, it's still really banked. I mean, I listened, I think it was like Brandon Shepard. He said, it's still, crazy banked, but
it's not 36
But I think
degrees
I
like
saw
Bristol
when
is.
they put it down, they put some type of like sawdust based on it. So I don't know if that was to help with just removal or whatever, but I'm not actually sure how deep they put the dirt.
That's some aggressive engineering to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I think they did it back in 2002, so they probably got a lot more tools than they did now.
We have our first live Q&A in a podcast.
That's
Dakota.
right.
We got a studio audience, and they just keep firing.
He's not even a
questions in.
Patreon member.
No, that's weird.
If you're a Patreon member, then we promise to answer all your questions in the live stream as the show goes on.
He is a staff member, emeritus.
Used to be.
Zach, what do you think is going to happen at Bristol in the Cup race?
It's going to be carnage. It'd be like watching the road course races, which I like. I'm not a huge NASCAR fan because generally I have better things to do with 4 hours of my day. But I will watch the road course race. And the last one, I think I turned it on with like 10 laps to go. And I was like, this is perfection. 11 laps to go. And I watched the end of what they did they do the Bud Shootout or not? It's not the Bud Shootout anymore.
The Busch Clash.
The Busch Clash was, and I saw that one.
That was on the Daytona road course.
Yeah, I saw those guys hand it off to a shrub for the win, and then I watched the end of the other one that they just did. So yeah, but it'll be chaos because some of those guys know what they're doing, but Larson's better. Those guys better hope they get on the pole and that they're not in a scrum.
Well, I don't know if they're going to. I guess I don't know if they're qualifying or not.
If they don't qualify.
Yeah, I think that's one of the races they qualify in practice. Or no, they said the other day they released a format. I think they're going to do heat races.
I was going to say they need to do the full format of heat races, and because they can't run 43 on dirt on that track, can they?
Yeah, no, they said they're going to do a full field, and suppously I heard it was supposed to be like 250 laps, which would be insane. It'd probably be rubbered up by the end of that.
Cue the circus music. That's what it'll be. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, like, it's dirt races. It's interesting to see, like, it's dirt, you think, and there's a cushion, which is kind of hard to describe to somebody.
Yeah, but it's going to be totally different for those guys.
But you see it by the end of the race, and it'll be shiny and black because they're laying rubber down on it.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is this?
Where all the dirt will be gone.
And they'll be back to
They'll be
asphalt.
changing the pavement tires.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Quite an
Very
engineering feat there.
very interesting. The one thing that the Cup Series and NASCAR has done in the last year is they've said we're going to try to be diverse and versatile, which is something I think which is one of the greatest things that you guys have going for you in this Silver Crowns is that you're running the same style of car, two totally different track surfaces. NASCAR Cup is now going to run 6 or 7 road course races. They're working in dirt. They're running their traditional races. I think that's going to encourage cross-discipline racing.
Yes. And I think there's Chris Wyndham's Silver Crown guy. He got a cup ride.
Yep.
And I think there's a kid out of California named Shane Golobic. He got another cup. I think he's running for Rick Ware, maybe.
I think they both may be.
Yeah.
Which is exciting. And I'm Facebook friends with Chris, so I'm very excited about that. That was because he ran the Hoosier 100.
Yeah, he's
previously
past Silver Crown champion too. So,
all right. So, are you going to run anything else? Are you going to get in an Indy car? I know Cody Swanson's gotten to do the Indy Lights car.
That guy should have got an opportunity a long time ago. He is truly amazing what that guy does behind a wheel.
Did you get his autograph yet?
No. Since we've had my kid, he's got 2 young boys too, so we've gotten to hang out a little bit more and stuff. And actually, the first year he was very helpful with me, like all the new places like Phoenix and any of the dirt miles. He kind of came up and just said, "Hey, you got any questions? Don't hesitate to come ask me." Or kind of said, "Hey, watch out for this. Don't do this," and just very, very good stuff that jumping into it for the first time, you'd want. Hopefully, somebody would tell you.
So you guys are a traveling community, and you look after each other as needed. Kevin's real tight. Kevin off in the distance over here is real tight with Keith Jones and the Jones family. And they went out to the Chili Bowl this 2 months ago. Their engine broke, done. They couldn't find a replacement.
Yeah.
Something breaks in your series. Are you guys SOL or are you borrowing parts off each other's trucks? How does that work?
I mean, we all kind of try to pitch in if somebody needs something or, if it's, dire need or whatever. But, the way we try to kind of run our deal, I like to be prepared, and that's the way I was kind of, the way I learned everything was if you go there, if you've got the opportunity to have spares and stuff, have them ready. And we actually there at the last race at Springfield, we still had a shot at the championship this year, and we'd made one run in practice, and I think we were like 6th or 7th quick. Felt really good about the car, and went out with about 10 minutes left, and motor went boom. So that wasn't good. And changing a Silver Crown motor is about like changing a midget motor. There's no quick way about it because nothing's self-contained. All the oil lines are outside the car and stuff like that. So we got it changed in time, but the car was missing like about half the body panels, and they were getting ready to give the command to start engines, and we hadn't put but 10 gallons of fuel in, so we still had about 60 gallons left to put in it. So we made it, and I think we ended up starting 28th or something back there in the back, and we were up to like 16th, and I just made an error and kind of folded the front axle under.
How important are the body panels on one of those?
The mile actually, I don't really know how much aero is that important, but I know definitely at the bigger pavement tracks, if you don't have a sun visor, your helmet will always try to rip off your head.
Yeah. Crazy times, man. All right. We are at the point in the show where we start to wrap it up, do final thoughts. I guess we can take any last minute questions from the studio audience that's developed. Producer Zach, I think your mom sent you a note of something you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
She harassed, she hunted me down, and I said, we're going to have Zach do this.
Yeah. So there is going to be a virtual meeting on the 16th at 6 p.m. Discussing the districting or redistricting. So it's anybody that's in the community is
talking about congressional districts,
local
political
districts,
districts.
redistricting. Yeah. So if you're interested in that and doing that, it's like I said, it's a virtual thing. Check with Beverly Matthews or Nate Lamar, and they both have agreed to like share that information with their prospective parties. And so check with that if you want to do that. And like I said, that'll be the 16th at 6 p.m.
Anything racing related we missed you need to cover?
No, I mean, it's like, it's fascinating to see those cars. And then if you like Dakota will probably get lost, but like the technical part of them. And then I've seen sprint cars at Winchester, and they're like on fast forward. It's the most bizarre thing ever. And it's kind of an odd thing to get in the technicality of them, because are the Silver Crowns like 360s?
Yeah. So sprint cars are all 410s. Silver Crowns are steel block 360s.
Yeah. And so like the sprint cars are like in the middle on size, but they have like the most obnoxious like you see the horsepower, you're like, this isn't right. They shouldn't be doing that, but I bet they're an absolute riot. So, but they are like good Eldora or something. And it's fun to see them all stacked up because you kind of get an appreciation of what they're all capable of. But yeah, go see some racing. And then Eldora, if you sit in the turns, you have to wear goggles because you get dirty.
Get dirt in your beer.
That happened to me at a Brickyard 400 where I wound up getting covered in tire rubber, and I never wanted to go back.
That was a different race.
That was Goodyear's fault.
Eldora sells koozies that have a flap to cover the top of your beer. That's part of their merch. And like, yeah, so yeah, you go to those races. Those are the most diehard fans ever.
Now Mike's next up here, and I don't know what he wants to do to close, but you owe me a Kyle story because you promised it in the chat, saying that you were going to tell some stories about Kyle.
Yeah, I know exactly what story this is.
First, I want to say I've known Kyle since he was born and really proud of what he's done. Glad to see him back at Magna Machine. And but they used to camp with us down at Madison, him and his family, his mom and dad. And Kirk and I decided we were going to make a hog roaster. We borrowed one year from the Moreland Fire Department and had all kinds of problems with it. So we decided to make one. And
owning a machine shop, you could do that.
We went all out on it. And Kyle came out one weekend to be with us, and
I was probably 4.
Yeah, Kirk and I were working away, and we couldn't figure out where Kyle was, and he was down by his dad's horizontal mill, and he had the die grinder wound up in his hair.
Oh no!
And pulled a chunk of his head out too, I think. So
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I saw my dad earlier that day. He had the air hose on it and blew himself off. Well, I didn't know that he changed it out with a die grinder and grabbed it and
so we were very fortunate.
They were on one end of the shop, and I think my dad said he heard me scream, and got down there, and luckily it just ripped it out the roots. And I think when he got home that night, because the reason I was out there, my mom was pregnant with my sister, and he got home and was like, hey, Kyle had a little accident. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. And my mom said she got up in the middle of the night and couldn't see. And then the next morning I came walking out of my room and turn around, big old bald spot on the back of my head.
We were in a little bit of trouble there.
How does it look now? Is your
It's all
hairline
grown
okay?
back. Yeah. There wasn't a permanent bald spot.
Yeah. Well, it'll come back in time.
The other thing I'm really glad about, my wife and I went down to Lawrenceburg to one of his races, and we got in. They were practicing, and we walked down the front row there, and my wife kept grabbing the back of her head and said, "What is that?" I said, "That's mud." And I had a hard time getting her to go back to a dirt track for a long time, but did get her to go up to Gas City once. But once he switched to the pavement on the Silver Crown, she enjoys going. So we've enjoyed going to a couple pavement races. And been a fun time. And then we were talking about the sprint cars. Anderson is just amazing because they have so much power. I don't think they ever gain traction in the entire straight. I mean, they're just spinning the whole way around.
If you ever get the chance to see 33 sprint cars start at Anderson, that is a sight that you can't see anyplace else.
I've seen that.
My problem is the damn day they run that race, Kyle. Because you've never been to the Indy 500, and I don't miss it.
It's the day before.
Well, the lifestyle I've led is that I have to get up at 3 a.m. to go get in line with the idiots.
Like if you realize what I do that week, like we ran, like used to back in the day when we were growing up, they ran pavement sprint cars at Anderson on Wednesday. USAC, they'd run USAC sprint cars at Terre Haute on Thursday. They'd run the Silver Crown cars Friday. Then the night before the 500 midget race would be at IRP, and you'd have the little 500 at Anderson.
Yeah,
and then really, like you're all raced out by the time Sunday gets here, and you just want to listen to it on the radio.
Just want to be done.
I just sit and watch drunk people on Georgetown on Saturday night.
That's pretty fun too.
It's wildly entertaining.
All right. So if people want to watch, jump on the if you got the show notes, the schedule is linked so they can see all 12 races there.
Go to USAC or USAC Racing.com. And they've got all the schedules and like you said, if you're out anywhere, check out the midgets and sprint cars too. The midgets put on an amazing show. There's a lot of young kids in that group, and they're pretty wild and crazy.
And I caught probably half the races this year with Kevin, either in a campsite or in his living room on Flow. So he's got real good at streaming.
They've done an amazing job. They've really stepped up their streaming game and stuff like that, and all the content they're putting out. I know they're trying to do a couple like shop interviews and stuff this winter, and just they keep up in their level. So USAC's doing a great job.
Are they sending their crew over to Riley Road?
I don't know. I've talked to them a little bit about it. Like I said, we got to get back to a two-bay scenario before we have a shop interview. So.
We got to switch over. My boat is in the wrong garage too. I got to get from winter mode to summer mode, man. You got to get your mom thrown out of there.
Yeah. Hopefully, well, it looks like it's supposed to stay above 40 degrees here, so I think we'll be okay.
Very good. Dakota Davis, any more questions?
I have nothing for Kyle anyway. I do want to say that, I made some stuff for Chris's wedding. He told me to bring it here. And this is our old producer, Mr. Chris Guffey. And I'm just going to say that if he doesn't pick it up next week, then it's fair game to anyone who wants it.
I think what we should do is we should change the locks and just see how long it takes for him to notice. Just change the locks on the building.
You had me turn around looking for Chris. I wouldn't recognize him if I saw him, I don't think.
The centerpieces that I made for his wedding is sitting in the studio. And he also has some things that my wife made for his wedding sitting in the studio. And those were here like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They've never been picked up.
He moved to Delaware County, and it may as well have been Delaware because he's gone.
You said today in a Facebook post that he had new friends, but I didn't see any other friends at the bachelor party.
I was just trying to be gentle for the audience. He literally told me on Sunday, he was like, yeah, Newcastle's a lot further away from Daleville than I thought it was. I'm like, everybody told you that, dude.
Yep.
Everybody told you. This is the way it was going to be. Goodbye forever. All right. That's enough of this. You guys are awesome. We appreciate Kyle showing up, Mike taking his time, everybody, the studio audience that gathered. This was great. Check out the USAC Silver Crowns on Flow Racing. We'll see y'all next week, and we're going to probably talk some politics then.
Thank you for listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty, which is part of the We Are Libertarians Network. I am Chris Spangle, and I am the founder of this network, and I invite you to listen to all of our shows, which you can find at wearelibertarians.com or by searching for these in your podcatcher. The flagship show is the We Are Libertarians podcast, where we apply libertarian principles to current events. The Brian Nichols Show is a conversation amongst Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, as they talk about what is happening in the news. And we have many other podcasts like The Chris Spangle Show, Upward, The Cost, Raw Audio Politics, Miranda's World, and Tad Talk, which is quite a ride. So check all of these out. Go to wearelibertarians.com and you can check out all of our great podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at wearelibertarians.com.